room. Can you hear the TV? It sounds loud to me. But...
Nope, sounds just fine. Welcome to Rock and Recovery. I'm your host, Jay. Today I've got a special guest. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, so I'm just going to call him Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing? And thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jay. Fantastic. Couldn't do without your platform, and so truly blessed to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was amazing, actually. It's really funny. This is the second Thanksgiving that I've been able to show up sober at. So,
mine too. This is number two, two in a row.
Congratulations. It's
Thank
amazing.
You. Thank you.
Keep stacking days and pretty special. Laughing, just where life's taking you, over 730 odd days, I guess. And
nice.
Came from a gratitude meeting just a couple hours ago, and there's so much to be thankful for today.
So I'm like right behind you. I think I hit 18 months in December, so I'm right there behind you.
Yeah, man, it's such a beautiful way to live life. I think about it all the time. My dad's visiting. He's from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and I'm here in Northwest Metro Minneapolis, and he came last year for Thanksgiving, and in town this year, and it's pretty special to celebrate. My 2 years sobriety this year fell on Thanksgiving yesterday, and
that is awesome. 2 years yesterday?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Damn! Congratulations.
Yeah. It's really neat.
Amazing.
Dad had 40 years back in March, and me being a little bit of maybe a slow learner, it just took a lot longer. That's all.
Hey, sometimes it's hard-headed people it takes a while for us to learn something,
Yeah.
Especially when people say, "Oh, you gotta, watch this." I won't.
Yes, exactly. I got to do what? I don't have to do anything.
I don't have to do shit. So I'm just gonna let you jump in and tell your story of what led you into addiction, how you overcame it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was, for myself, anyways, got to start in the beginning. Small town boy, raised in Hoople, North Dakota. About 350 people. We were the Catholics in the Protestant community. And my dad was the businessman, entrepreneur versus the farmers. So, just keep stacking those chips on my shoulder as I was just couldn't get me out of Hoople soon enough, and joined the Army in 1999 while I was at the University of North Dakota. And basically when I was 12, started drinking. And like I said, my dad, he's a recovering alcoholic as well. And, so I was like, I don't want to be like him. And I wasn't, right? Like I was Ryan. I could do my own thing. And a football injury in high school got me into the bottle, after my first taste of it at 12. And I always enjoyed it. And, got arrested, my freshman year in college at the All Minnesota rugby tournament here down in Minneapolis. And, my own military career was just, kind of work hard, play harder kind of thing. And was able to curb it throughout my military career, always by saying, hey, it's, we're just training to head over across the pond one more time, so I don't have a problem with it. It's just all the stress, or it's all this, it's all that. And I think I just did a good job hiding it for the 33 years that I was doing it. And when it came time to retire from the military, we made some decisions. Basically, was going to be a financial advisor and retire in Washington State, even though the Midwest was where we grew up, and so on and so forth. And a little thing called COVID happened, and I was on my last deployment, and the family wanted to move to Minnesota and retire here. I'd already moved them to Washington, built a retirement house. My best friend and I were going to work together, and basically, that all changed. And me being, I guess, the good boy that I wasn't a man because I was still lying and drinking and cheating and running. Moved the family here in I think 2021-ish, and I retired in 2022. And it only took 17 months for me to completely derail the train that I had been on for all those years. And, I was just lost. I didn't enjoy my corporate job that I had. I wasn't obviously active in the community to help support the kids in school or anything. I was just enjoying living in the basement with my beer and bourbon and all my pain meds and stuff like that I got from the VA, after I retired, to kind of keep me feeling okay, good about myself. And all I was doing was running at the end of the day. And so that's how it was. And coming into Thanksgiving 2 years ago, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'd gained 50 pounds. I didn't like myself on the outside nor on the inside. And, basically I had my last drink Sunday, the 26th November 2023. Got a picture of it, actually, because it was an all-day drunk. I've been playing virtual golf with my buddies in the morning, and then we went across the street to the bar, and about every hour it was like, hey, I'll be home in 30 minutes, last one. And at 5 o'clock, I took a picture of it and sent it to my now former spouse. And that was the last one, lo and behold. And the following day, Monday, 27th of November, was 6:30, Squad 8 here in Maple Grove, my first AA meeting. And I did 90 and 90. First week or so, week and a half in, got a sponsor, and we just kept rocking and rolling. And found that home group on Monday night, and then my Friday stepbrothers meeting that I was kind of talking about earlier. I've turned into like my standard thing, along with getting back into the church. I teach 7th grade boys this year. Last year I taught 6th grade. Kind of figured it worked out too well. I was in 6th grade when I started drinking, so I might as well maybe give back a little bit of service to 6th graders, and now get to stay with them this year. And we'll see what happens as we move forward. But just continue to put a ton of work in. Service is definitely that ability for me today to find myself and kind of fill yourself back up if you're starting to empty it in certain other areas. And was blessed to start sponsoring guys, after I had about 13 months of sobriety, and so forth. And that's more service and so forth. And it hasn't been easy. The first month, 6 weeks, my former spouse and I, we've been together 25 years. We separated and got the divorce papers, after I'd sobered up. Kind of interesting when I think about it today. My mom stayed with my dad 16 years, after he sobered up. So I think that broke my heart a little bit. And, really that hurt, really woke me up in the side of, the kids. Have 2 adult children, 2 girls. And, they're kind of like, man, you're a mess, Dad. We'll see you when you get this all figured out. And those promises, I tell you, in the big book, they come true. It's amazing. Today, it was 15 months my youngest daughter was estranged. It's just like, wow. I didn't like you, and wow. Really cool, because last month we moved. I've got a 2-bedroom, hoping that, a year and a half ago she'd maybe live with me part-time, coming out of the divorce and so forth. And, she's like, yeah, radio silence. And so it would happen really at the end of it is lost that corporate job and downsizing. And I started Our Protector Development, or Our Protector LLC, last December. And so her bedroom turned into the podcast studio / writing studio / storage of all the books that, we wrote a couple of,
everything office.
Yeah. And so it's funny now today, as we're putting, my master bedroom, I guess, here for the apartment back together. And this is the office, storage room, my bedroom, so on and so forth. And you realize how you can handle change, finally, for once in your life, without having to drink over it or drug over it or run away from whatever it is. And now I have my little girl back in my life, and she likes me again, which is really funny. And we can talk about everything under the sun. And, today I can talk to my dad about everything under the sun. Before, I was afraid of him, I'm like this combat veteran that couldn't tell your dad the truth, because it was very, how I felt was how I felt about myself and him, kind of thing. And that dynamic of, just fearing so very much of, I can't be disrespectful. He's my father, and so forth. And it's like, well, why don't you just ask him questions? Like, why do you act this way still at times? Like, you've been in recovery a long time. What causes you to, not be kind and gentle and so on and so forth? And, it's that obsession of the mind that still creeps in. We might be able to put the plug in the jug sometimes, and, depending on what your beliefs are and higher power, for me, that was the coolest thing is, I found God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, rapidly over time and space, and it continues to get stronger. And for me, that allows just to have infinite strength where I once lacked so much of it. And yeah, it's a everyday thing though. I mean, I'm definitely every morning, grateful to have a new day, and when the day's over with, grateful to put it to bed and start it all over again the next day. And yeah, it's unbelievable. The last 2 years could be like 20 years from one side of the street and like 2 days from the other, kind of thing.
So I know you said in early recovery, you had to go through a divorce. How much did that affect you staying? Did that lead you to almost want to go back to drinking?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I probably had about 6 months of sobriety, and we're getting ready for my oldest daughter's graduation from high school, and we still weren't divorced yet, and it was kind of like going back to our house, that had previously lived in, nice big house, had all the cool stuff, swimming pool, and everything you could want under the sun. And I started helping out back in May of 23 or whenever, 24, excuse me. And yeah, I wanted to reconcile, kind of thing. I'm like, hey, everything's great, I'm doing good. And she's like, no, I'm good. I got it figured out. I'm dating somebody else and life's good. And, it was tough. Like, that definitely to me was kind of like, I'm better now, take me back, kind of thing, like I'm who I was when you met me, which
How'd you
was,
deal with that temptation?
I went to, I probably, let's see. So at that point, I started going to more AA meetings again. I talked to my sponsor, a lot more often than just our normal kind of text messages and so forth in the morning. I did a Alpha Christian like 10-week program, and that really helped being able to. It was like co-led. It was really interesting. I think just like the perfect synchronization of things of a couple, married couple that was part of our group. That wasn't the case for the 4 groups I think that they had. But to see that, it was just kind of like where I finally fully recognized that what's meant to be and what's not meant to be, in it, and realizing that it was the positioning of moving on, and that the Lord, would have someone else, not saying that someone else feels that side of you, but that there's
That
always,
emptiness, that hole in the heart type
yeah,
thing.
there's always, like, it's always redirection. There's always better, I guess, if that's that's the way I'd want to put it. We had 25 odd years together. It was wonderful. We have 2 beautiful children together. We don't communicate, unless it's financial today. And, I
Right.
mean, so you can look at it 2 ways from that. Both of us are emotional maturity involved in it all. But I think the other side is recognizing that all I can control is myself. And so what does that look like today? It looks like, being in the big book. For me, it's being in the Bible, is the biggest book for me, and operating with both of those. So like I said, I have my 2 AA meetings a week, Monday, Friday, but then I have church on Wednesday and church on Saturday or Sunday. And, I read my Bible every day. I journal every day. Everyone's probably, like that still want to be all tough and macho like I once
Journaling
wanted to
works,
be.
I'm telling you.
It doesn't. I was Airborne Ranger, Super Hua, like 4 years in the Middle East, blah, 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 blah. And no, I'd much rather take my, be nice, kind of thing today, be kind, be gentle. And I know that if I have to, I got to flip the switch. I know that exists inside of there. I don't want that guy to have to come out though.
Right.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We saw Mr. Hyde far too much for those 33 years of drinking and drugging. And that to me is, the reason why when you look in a mirror, there's a reflection is because it once was a window that you could see just beautiful life. And we started putting our dirtiness on the back side of it, like being bullied when you're younger and like, missing this or screwing that up or wrecking a car or whatever the things happen. And the next thing you know, it's a reflection of ourselves. And all we can see is the 40, almost 7-year-old, like, illusion, with the receding hairline and the crooked teeth and,
everything that's wrong.
And and that's not the case. It's the dynamic of realizing that, we're just all little kids want to be little kids again, where it's pure and, enjoyable and you can laugh again. And
Absolutely.
Yesterday I was thinking that as we were playing this game after Thanksgiving dinner, and it was some silly like ask Google or something, so we all wrote down like 5 words and like you pick one and it, you'd have to, somebody wrote like poop, so it's like, what's another name for, whatever, feces or something. I don't know. Right. And it's like, Google comes back like, well, I cannot say this or that, but like other terms are poop and, whatever, and crap. And so it's like, yeah, you get a point. But the funniest thing about it was the ability like to laugh again.
To laugh at the word poop again.
Yeah. And because we were so serious all the time. And I was looking, at least I was like, want to get in a fight. I remember going to like hockey games and being like, hey, man, I hope somebody bumps into me or something so I could just like, all this rage you had inside. And now when you see it, you're just like, no, I want peace. And the serenity involved in, my mornings nowadays, it's a lot. I get on the treadmill and, walk, run a lot. And as the sun's coming up, like, go like, man, that's beautiful. And never, previously in life, like I would have never, ever like saw the sunrise and go like, man, this is gorgeous. Just really in awe of it. Right. The vastness and the beauty. And, it doesn't happen overnight. It's taken a number of days to get to this point to really just enjoy what a common day brings to you. But you gotta want to work at it, right? You gotta want to better yourself. And I think that's the coolest thing today is seeing and helping others go through that, because we can't see our transformation. It takes like, I can see it today, like, 2 years later, because I got a couple of pictures on the fridge where, I was 50 pounds heavier. My face was about out to here. Big goatee, big dip of Copenhagen in, my kids are there and they're obviously younger. And that was before they, said adios muchachos, kind of thing. And I keep that up there. I don't like looking at it anymore because it's just like,
good reminder.
Not me, but it's a fantastic reminder of if you let it, it won't take long to get back there. And more than likely, if you go back out to do some more research, it probably, that's what I love, like kind of thinking, meeting I was at today, I had a guy, talking about relapse, and he's got 13 days. It's like, I don't want to go have to see what research looks like. I'll take everybody's word for it, knowing that it's the same. I mean, I know I sober cabbed like last year. I was like, I can do it. I got like 13 months sobriety, and it didn't take but the first person kind of thing, and you're like, yeah,
I'm done. I find that I don't like drunk people too much,
No, because we see ourselves. I mean, instant reflection, right? And you're like,
I just can't stand. I have no patience with them. None. Yeah. It's like you chose to do this to yourself, or it might not be a choice. Sometimes it's not a choice. Sometimes it is what it is. But for the blackout drunk, it's like you chose to get there. Normally it's a choice.
Yeah,
and you chose to act so stupid, and it irritates me. It's like, come on, because I could see myself on a different type of drug, but that way, so it's like, I was such a dumbass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I can make poor decisions sober. So like, it's the dynamic of now. I just look at it today. Because had it with one of my children about drinking and driving, kind of thing. And it's like, I mean, obviously I was not the great example because I was always good to drive. Didn't matter if I
Oh,
had
yeah.
1 or 21. And,
Right.
like if someone asked me, you okay to drive?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But it's that dynamic of like, are you blackout drunk? Well, I'm like, no, if I drink vodka, yeah, I black out. But like beer and bourbon, no, I can drink it all day long for whatever reason. And that dynamic to me, yeah, just it was, and that's the thing, like September 2 years, yeah. So like call it 20, almost 7 months ago, I did get pulled over. I was speeding. It was after a Twins game here, and I had a few beers. I was supposed to be the designated driver. It's a good example of it, right? And I only had like 3, no big deal. Like big, like probably 10%, or so. They're probably 6 beers, and
Right.
not thinking much of it. And I was driving fast, and highway patrolman pulled me over, and he's like, "You been drinking?" I said, "Yes." And I was having a hard time getting my wallet out of like my zippered up like pants and stuff. And he's like, "Is this your car?" And I was like, "Yeah." Well, it's at the time I was still married, and wife's car, and she was with, and I had a couple of friends, and he's like, goes back, and then obviously he come back. I'm like, I'm going to get a field sobriety test, like, because he was taking a long time, and comes back. He's like, "Step out of the vehicle." I was like, "Absolutely." And it was wild because he did ask, and I hadn't done a field sobriety test in a little while. He's like, "Get any, eye, head, whatever injuries?" I'm like, "Yeah." And, for my time in the military. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm in the Army." And I was like, "Okay, well, this will be interesting. Maybe he'll just drop it, And he did.
Right.
He went straight through everything, and like, I'm like, "Oh, here we go. We'll be heading to the station." And he came back after, he's like, "All right, sit down by the whatever." And I was like, "Okay." He came back, and he, kind of gave me the little bit of riot act. You got 2 teenage daughters. So I want you to teach them something when you get home, not to tailgate people and, drive 25 miles over the speed limit or whatever, kind of thing. And do 100 push-ups and have a nice night. And, it's funny that I didn't, that wasn't enough for me to stop.
No.
Right. It was a couple months later before we completely ran off the road. And yeah, I had been arrested, when I was in college, and, I had all that stuff. And it's interesting the times when those little nudges of like, "Hey, dum dum,"
Little kicks in the asses,
yeah. And you
somebody called them God winks,
yeah.
and that's really what they are. It's like,
they are. And we just go like, he wasn't, if it was supposed to be my time, like, I would have got locked up. Right. He needed more, he needed more to happen.
Right.
Kind of thing. Like, you needed to kill somebody before you're going to stop, or, you needed to really get arrested.
Something serious.
Yeah. That wasn't serious enough,
and that's what people's rock bottom is. It's something serious enough to get their attention to change.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your rock bottom is, but it has to be something serious that you're going to take enough to change. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is really interesting, those dynamics, right? Like, of what's it going to take? And, and I wonder sometimes too, because like, all the years that you don't, and then when you're finally doing it, it's take, hey, sober today, that's all we got. And then we're good.
Yep.
But the reflection of it and seeing, the dynamics, one of the guys in our one group, I always would tell stories of being, the guys that would talk about being grateful alcoholics. And when he told this story the first time, it was probably a year and a half ago that I heard him say it. I was like, "What is he talking about?" Or like a guy, I'm in recovery, and now I get it, because like, I'm completely grateful to be an alcoholic. Like, it becomes your superpower in the sense of like having that ability to like, get up 3 hours earlier than, going to work, working out. Like, I have, going to bed. I don't have to sit up and watch like a football game or a baseball game, or, like the next morning be all hungover. Like, I'm like, all the things that are important to me are right there, like having time now with my kids, like, and getting this, spend the, go to church and have lunch, brunch, drunch, whatever you want to call it, with them afterwards. And, just being present for the first time.
Being present. That's the big thing
their
right there.
whole life.
It's not just time. It's being mentally present,
Yeah.
because
I mean,
we can spend time together all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's just, where you really like I have questions to ask them now that I'm curious to know, like when it's like, it's not just like, how's your day? Oh, that's nice. That's good. And then, I get my phone out and be like, well, all the different things of it. And it's like, no, it's like so cool to actually like, and then get to know like people that are in their lives. And,
Yeah.
and I suppose some people that were ever, the normies and stuff like that to listen to us and go like, I'm present. And I'm just like, I'm not here to say that you're not present, but it's the dynamic of like, we all have that obsession of the mind somewhere, and it takes us on this crazy adventure, which is away from those we love and, ourselves as well. And yeah,
So I know you said you're in the military for a while. How big of a factor was that in your alcohol abuse? Or alcohol use, per
um,
se?
probably quite a bit, because I just, like for me, priority was always the selfish side of, my profession was like number one, probably booze like number two, or then maybe booze number one, then like, profession number two, maybe kids, family, and you know what I mean? Like, but it was never, in the right order, however you want to look at it. I mean, I think like
It's always
today,
the army and booze, right?
yeah, right. Yeah. And it was easy because you'd have like, and I probably wasn't a great leader at times, because I was in charge of, I was an officer. So the dynamic of like, you got little eyes, right? Little eyes being your kids, little eyes being your soldiers. It's like you're sitting there, having a good time, drinking, driving, doing all these things. Like,
So
well,
they can too.
they can too, right? And
Yeah.
then I remember I was like, when I'd have a boss that, enjoyed it, it was perfect. Cause it's like, sweet. Like, he drinks more than I do, kind of thing. Like, and it's interesting though, the ones that were really awesome, they didn't though, they didn't have a problem. They could, you'd see them go out and have a beer, but they weren't the ones like closing the bar down with the rest of the crew.
Yeah.
And so those are the dynamics too that you see and realize like what type of, like being in an operational assignment, kind of thing, closer to the tip of the spear, and so forth. A little different, because you're getting up and you're, like obviously sweat more here, bleed less there, and that does make sense. But there's the other assignments that aren't, in between operational assignments where you kind of like are like, well, no, I'm not deploying out of this billet or this job. So like, it's like, yeah, all right, let's like tear it up. And, you get a little fat and get a little out of shape, you're not putting in the work like you normally would. And that's where I saw it. Like I took my talent for granted, where I could sandbag or not sandbag, cherry pick, whatever you want to call it. And I would. And I think also, you try to play the personality game. Like if you do have a boss, right, that likes to drink, you're like, you got to be one of the boys that can, I can drink as much as you, sir, kind of thing.
Right.
And we're measuring certain things here, and
Right.
ego and
Yeah.
that pride of things. And so that to me, there's certainly that there's memories of that in there, where
How many times did you actually go out into the field inebriated? Or was that a hell no, I'm not going to do that part
yeah,
thing?
I mean, no, I mean, I would say there was times like that we might have not so much if we were training, no. But I mean, we had other events and things
Okay.
that, you'd have dining outs and dining ins, where it's like dining out, it's where you're, the spouse or whatever, go to like a ball or an event. And, it's pretty much a tie it up, tie it on. And the dining ins, which I don't think really do anymore. That was just straight go somewhere, get locked in and, literally burn the inside of that place to the ground until the morning of whatever.
Right.
And, those are definitely times of, get sick drunk, kind of thing. And, it's interesting when you bring that up, because I remember after I retired, my psychiatrist, and, I told her I'd sobered up, and she's like, you had a drinking problem? I'm going back through your entire file. I'm like, I've lied on every, like how many drinks do you have like during a normal day?
Oh, maybe one a week.
You never put more than two on there because it flag you, as whatever. And she was like, well, now that you're honest about it, like we can go through this. And, just like you bringing up the question, I was like, no, I don't think I'd ever, I mean, I didn't. And then I started thinking back on my corporate job, and I was like, well, on Mondays and Fridays, we could work from home. And oh yeah, those little seltzer drink, those vodka things. And I'm thinking like you're drinking a Celsius, but it's got 5%, I suppose, alcohol, vodka, whatever. And yeah, you just start drinking those, like, because this same desk I'm sitting at was my work desk for at home work, and I had like all my bourbon. It's like a cabinet underneath this table, and that was all there. And then I had a beer fridge, but it also had wine, seltzers, whatever. And yeah, you'd be like, it's like
I'm thirsty.
got a couple meetings, no big deal. I'm not in
Right.
the office, so
Right.
yeah. So that was probably the last 6 months, before sobering up, that I was doing that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think about that now, running a business, and like, you get like $75 for a meal if you're traveling for work, and you can have like, drinks on there and things. And for me as a business, like, because in the military we'd get like our per diem, and you just got it. So whatever you spent it on, it was you'd use your credit card, get reimbursed at the end of the trip. But you were have a corporate job, you got the corporate credit card. I mean, I just think of the dynamics of everybody who, what type of example were you for everybody else? They're like, Ryan has 2 drinks if he's on a trip. Like, I can have 2 drinks for every meal, right? Like, kind of thing. And you're like, yeah, it goes back to being the example. And, who do you want to be? What do you want to be? And I know it's hard. We all have our stories. We all have our childhoods. We all have the past. We all have our current.
How much did having a therapist actually right fresh out of the military, how much did that help you to get into recovery, to want to quit?
I don't think it helped at all to help me quit. I think it was more so today, though. I do enjoy, like, because I think we only see each other once a month now. But when I think of the dynamics of, I show up and everything's good, I'm like, I got nothing to talk about. And she's like, well, she'll start asking a couple questions, and then the next thing you know, it's an hour later, and I had plenty to talk about, right? So
yeah.
So that to me today is like that pulling out, like, yeah, I got it. Everything's good right now, but like, I haven't seen you in 30 days. Let's just, and you have that history together too, of knowing like where I've come
Hey,
from.
I haven't heard from you in 45 days.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other side. I think immediately, especially for those of us in the program, and you think of like sponsee or sponsorship. Like, I know, like, my sponsor, if I'm not lining up, next week's phone call and so forth, like, I was like, hey, how you doing? And it's like, yeah, it's the same thing. Cause I get, once we get some time under our belt, like, things going good. And then you're like, I'm good enough. Like, I'm going to start dating again, and then the next thing you know, like, all you care about is, now life's good and you got a girlfriend, kind of thing. And it's like, ooh, like, so we still need some adult supervision, all of us, right? And so
all of us need adult supervision, I think.
yeah. and it goes back and forth. And, that's the coolest thing about it. I think, those who I sponsor and then those who sponsor me, we have that pull push, where it's just like, and it's like, you asked me how I was doing, how you doing, and they're like, actually, like, it's funny, I'm going to call my sponsor now, and that's just a little bit of accountability. And that's where in the military, I think, it was so great because we did have battle buddies, right? I tell my kids that all the time, like, who's your battle buddy?
I call them designated adults.
I love that. That's awesome. I love it. But it's true because, like,
it really is.
You find yourself in some dark alley by yourself. You don't think you're going to get thumped, kind of thing. It's like you need somebody to watch your six. And I love that designated adult.
Designated adults. Hey, we had a DD when we were gonna doing whatever, so we need to have another DD or a DA as we're gonna getting older.
Oh yeah. Well, I always had to have somebody to, like, cry in each other's beer together about how terrible the good times were. That's
how terrible the old days, how great but terrible the old days were.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, right? I guess that's a good one we can chat about is the dynamics of, like, realizing how good it is. But I'm gonna use the feelings, but I don't feel good. And it's like, because you've never ever
been actually good
this sober before in your life. This is what real sobriety feels like. And you have to feel like, again, you get to feel again, which creates emotions that you haven't felt maybe ever in your life. And that's what I realized today is I've never felt this much, and it's unreal. Well, it's like just being grateful for um, what you have. I mean, there's certain guys, that I know that I've gone, to visit them in sober homes and different things, and going like, man, like I got kicked out of a 5,000 square foot house and moved into, like a 500 square foot apartment, but I'm not living with 10 guys that are, you know what I mean? Like, I'm so grateful
Right.
that I was able to have what I had, like
Yeah.
after the fact. I think probably while I was going through it, I probably was feeling sorry for myself. Like, how could I have to have this, versus that? And it's like, dude,
Right.
you're warm, dry, and safe. Like, the
You
good
got
Lord
the
take care of you.
essentials: roof,
Yeah.
clothes, and food.
Yeah. No,
That's all that matters.
it does.
And I've dealt with some people that wanted this, wanted that, wanted this. It's like you got what you need. So why are you complaining right now?
Mhm.
You've got your food, you're getting fed, you got a place to sleep, and you've got clothes on your back. What really is the problem?
Yeah. It's that obsession of the mind that we
It is.
I should have more, like, and all this. And I went through the same thing, like with the
Did you? Okay,
divorce.
so I know you say you got a home group, and I'm sure there's people there with 10, 15, 20 plus years. Did you ever start early in recovery, compare yourself to others? Like,
Oh,
why
yeah.
aren't I doing this good? Why aren't I doing as good as this person over here? You see, I've got more time than this person. Why are they doing so good?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I remember, the dynamic of that, like, why, or this was for me. Um, I was see guys that like their wives stayed with them, and I was like, oh, I want to be like so and so, kind of thing. His wife didn't leave him, or like they got back together, and you know, fast forward now 2 years after, and they're divorced, and I'm like, and would I have stayed sober the entire time if I went through, what I'm saying? If you change any dynamic of it, like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing, where you're just like, if we change any of this, like, is Ryan still, sober right now kind of thing? It's like, just be so grateful for what, like, I think about that all the time, because it took me a while, like going through the divorce, where I wanted to fight everything. I could surrender in my sobriety, but like in the divorce, I couldn't just like go like, what, everything's going to happen exactly the way it's supposed to happen. Like, I had to be all up in it, like trying to be like, we need to sell this right now kind of thing, and you need to move right now, and you need to do all this right now. And it's like, okay, why can't you bring your program into this situation, right? And
Right.
I mean, having to live through it and go through that and understand that, like, when we talk about like true surrender, it means surrendering across the board, everything, not just like in,
Absolutely.
our sobriety. It's like, hey, you don't get to go to an AA meeting, talk one way, then leave and, get in a fight with everybody else across the, and be like, oh, I was good. Like, I was able to, have serenity for an hour while I was at whatever Alano or whatever that looks like. It's that's just, I guess, going back to like, finally being like clean. The slate's clean. My side of the street's completely, it's clean today. Like, I don't have any of that stuff, hanging on a 100-foot rope all the way down the street, still following me around. It feels good. I mean, it's just one of those new
How far? What
dynamics.
was one of the hardest steps doing the 12 steps? Now, was it AA or was it a different 12 step?
No, yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I know the steps. I hate the steps, but what was one of the most difficult parts of the steps for you?
I think for me, it was probably like, making amends in that dynamic of like, where it's not about, me, right? Like, it's the
Right.
dynamic of what did we do to them? And, it took me a long time with the kids, knowing that like they weren't in my, and you start to think about 15 months really isn't that long of a time, like it felt like eternity, Annabelle and I, not having each, and I was thinking about like my younger sister is estranged from like, myself, my dad, so on and so forth. And like I was like, at a certain point though, I was okay with it. Like, I'm like, if she never comes back into my life, I'm okay with it, because I know there's certain people that aren't supposed to be in, our lives. And it's just like, that's what
That's her
serenity
choice. Yeah.
is supposed to look like for this situation. And it was really interesting back in early September, how we just, like started being in contact again. And then we, hung out. We had like lunch one day and, it was awesome. And, then it was like, yeah, I'd like to do this. Okay, cool. Let's do that. And then all of a sudden, there's certain things that dynamics happening with her and her mother. And, it was like, your mom wants, not to have full custody of you kind of thing. Like, and so like, that means you can start living here if that, like that's what she wants, but what do you want, and so it was really neat, if it was scary and neat. I remember telling my home group, like, kind of
It's
thing,
like, oh, I don't want to fuck this up type thing.
yes, exact. That I think that's probably the quote. You could just quote that, and the dynamic of, I was like scared,
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
big, rough and tough dude.
What if
Like,
it's too much at,
yeah, like
what if I get too
what if this
overwhelmed?
is my one and only shot at this? And I messed
Yes.
it up. I screwed it up before.
Yeah.
Like then will it be forever? And you realize that the tools that all those media, like you put the work in, it's like putting money in the bank. It's there. You can withdraw it, and it was wild how like every time it was. Friend and mine, we found a bed, and then it was like, and Belle and I, we went out and like, went to Marshall's or Home Goods, whatever it's called, and got this, and I'm at, and it's not like I'm making, money, like tons of money these days, you just because you start a business and, everyone's like, oh yeah, it's gotta be great. You do this, and this, and you're like, yeah, it's great, but like, like one day maybe the money will come where you can like, and so
maybe it's still a lot of work.
Right. And so it was fun. We got it all put together. And now with my dad visiting, I'm staying in her room and he's staying in my room. Just anyways, easier.
So you got the couch basically.
And yeah. And so you realize though, like how grateful I'm just grateful that I have this much now. I'm a 2-bedroom, 2-bath place. Like life's good, and so, but you realize how, what I currently have, like totally happy. I don't need any more. I actually really don't want any more sometimes, just because it's like you realize that it doesn't fill that hole inside of you anymore like it once did. That obsession of the mind for me, where it was like, having new stuff or having stuff to make me happy. Now it's less stuff. It's more, more peace. That serenity is just priceless. And so those are the things that as we go through it, there's a reason why, we don't get it all back too soon, because we're not ready, and that's where I really realize it today, is the understanding of, you have to shed those old groups, like those old friends need to fall off and fall away. I mean, because if they're in your life, like you don't have the ability to change, and you go back to the old ways, what do we do? Well, Saturday night we go to this place and we watch this game and we do that. All right, as well, when we go there, then we always end up here. And so that's the thing of realizing that you just, I think it's almost like the relocation program. Like when someone does like show up,
it says nothing changes if nothing changes.
That's true.
And that's one of the biggest things in recovery is you really do have to change your situation for things to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to put in the work, you got to put in the effort, but you really got to change everything about your life.
Yes.
Just change it all to get your life back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's 1,000%. Nothing for me today, 2 years later. Actually, really, nothing looks the same, because like, my kids are in my life in such a way that like it's an open, they know everything. Like there's no hiding, anything that happened, anything that, it's like, this is the living truth. It's the brutal honesty. If anybody's read How It Works, which, it's a good place to start. It's just like that ability to be honest. If you can do that, like, it gets real easy real quick.
It really does. The honesty part, I mean, that came really easy in recovery and sobriety for me. I mean, because don't have to lie no more. If you don't like me, oh well, I don't care now, because it's about me.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. No,
and
I mean,
that
you realize that's if people are meant to be in your life, like kind of
they're
thing,
going to be there.
they'll be there. It
It's
doesn't.
that acceptance, accepting things, everything happens for a reason, and we just got to accept it. Just let it go, accept it, know that we can't control things. We can barely control ourselves, let alone everything else,
Right.
and just be accepting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's spot on.
So now what do you do since after you've been sober for a while? When did you start your business, and how's that going?
Yeah. Yeah. So I went through the layoff July of 24. So let's see. Started the business December of 24. Started writing books. First book was released this past June. It's called God Only Knows When the Devil Comes to You a Second Chance at Life. And it kind of walks you through the divorce, sobriety, the job loss.
So it's basically autobiography.
Yeah, it's a memoir, I guess. It's got some tools in it, that I utilized, with just getting back on track and different pieces of it.
Self-published?
Yeah, hybrid published through Trilogy, Christian Publishing. And then
Nice.
just here in September, we released The Icarus Effect, The Highs and Lows of Our Emotions. We all have feelings. That one kind of takes you through just the emotions and the feelings piece of realizing that if you can't be brutally honest, you are just a boy. You don't get to become a man until you can, tell the truth. And
That's so true. That's so,
yeah,
I mean, really, it's so true.
yeah, it's got a great Harvard study in there about social skills and our emotional intelligence. That just different things to help each other build yourself back up, when you don't know how to talk to even to another human being because, we're broken. Right. And, we got to it's like going back to the gym, getting stronger one day at a time. And then, just did partnered with Jack Canfield. So the co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, there was a dozen of us. We did a co-authorship. It's called The Living Truth. And, that one, the 12 of us, so each got a chapter in his book, basically the way I look at it. And for me, that was really, the brutal honesty side, but I do talk about some of my, suicidal things that I went through over time and space and, just, drop the rock, right? Like just quit carrying these things around, the generational curses that, we some of us have to shepherd. And I guess like I'll take the black sheep moniker and say, well, I'll break every one of these then if that's what it takes for my kids not to have to put up with it, for me not to have to put up with it anymore. And definitely with The Living Truth, we all became bestsellers in a couple weeks ago. That was super exciting to see that happen rapidly. And from the first two books built, it's called The War of Purpose Built to Break. It's an online course, 11 modules, 44 like individual broken down ways just to work through the mess of life. It's a lot of like contractual worksheets along with like watching the videos and so forth. And then I do now coaching as well with it. So it's been really exciting. And then also partner in crime, I co-host Our Healer, Our Protector podcast. And it's a Christian podcast. Lisa and I, she's a nurse at 24 years. And we're both divorced. And we have, each have a couple of adult kids. And we kind of just go through what we've gone through in our journey in life, our healing and so forth. And then kind of just seeing like where life takes, our kids and so on and so forth, like coming out of divorce and just that rebuild and everything else. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how, if we focus,
How life goes. Yeah.
what can come of it, and
it's funny when we show up for life shows up for us too.
Oh man, that's a good one right there.
It really is. It really does. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Rose and not one word, two words, Rose and Forte. She was on my show, and she's a big Christian advocate, and she was also a sober person now, and she would be great on your podcast, I think.
Okay.
She's on Podmatch also.
All right, I'll check her out.
Yeah, her name's Rose Ann Forte. And just tell her Jay sent you from Rock and Recovery. We talk all the
Yeah.
time.
No, man, that's awesome. I appreciate it. It's how this whole life thing works,
It is,
Connect the dots.
connection, everybody says connection is the opposite of addiction. And it's true. It's very true,
Yeah.
because I learned how to talk hosting live events and on podcasts because I used to not like to talk to people at all. I was the person in the corner and I was happy there.
Mhm.
Now I can't wait to talk to people. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, well,
It's crazy.
you realize that, I mean, we're all suffering from something. And, previously, this is the way I feel about it anyway. The devil painted you into that corner. So your gift, your ability to communicate with others wasn't part of the deal. Right. Cause once, as soon as you got your voice, like ain't
Ah,
no stopping Jay kind of
no,
thing. And
it's
he's
not.
going to heal. He's going to heal and connect a lot of people doing what he does. And, that's what we're doing right now. I mean, without your
Yeah,
platform, you and I, we're not talking right now,
right.
so
I
that's
would
the
have never met you.
dynamic.
I'd be like, who the hell is this Ryan T dude that I can't pronounce his last name still?
Right, it's Reichert, no big deal. Reichert, reshare, Reichert. Like, I mean, I've
Yeah.
heard it.
I've butchered so many last names. I just don't do the last names no more. So it's like, I'll save me the embarrassment.
That's the fun part about it now, I think, is, before, I'd get embarrassed about just about anything under the sun.
Yeah.
And, every once in a while I might, there might be a moment you're like, no, that was a bonehead thing, Reichert.
Yeah, we all get those too. I still get lots of
But
those.
it's not what, like I think about it, it's like clothes, right? Like you spill on
Right.
yourself or something, you get a stain and you're just like, dude, you're the only person that's going to remember that after 5 seconds ago, kind of
It's
thing.
like wearing a white t-shirt and going to eat pasta. It's like, really, Jason? Really?
But
What'd you expect?
it could bother us for, whatever, a minute, an hour, a day, whatever. Some people,
Right.
it bothers them a lifetime. They never let it go. And, not our problems. So that's the thing about it is like, like how healthy do we want to be? So something like that, doesn't ruin our life, not so much our
Yeah.
day, but our life. And, that's what I
Last
think about all
question.
the time.
Last question I got. There's one person listening out there, which there's quite a few right now. If there's one person listening out there that you want anything to be taken away from this conversation, what would it be?
Don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. I care about you. Jason cares about you. Um, it might be hard right now, but you can get back up. I always think about, I'm a big Rocky fan, or well, actually maybe just Sylvester Stallone movies.
Yeah,
And
me
I
too.
think about, Mickey, and I saw it was Rocky 5, where it's the reflection scene of, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 or 3, whichever one it was, but where he's talking about, the little angel on your shoulder when you go down, and gonna hear my voice. It's gonna say, "Get up, you son of a bitch," because Mickey
Get up,
loves
you
you.
son of a bitch.
Yeah. And that, to me, and whoever out here is listening on that, when you're feeling, like you're knocked down, you're like on the floor flat, you're not on one knee. Yeah, you get up, you son of a bitch, because Ryan and Jay love you. It's the
Yep.
dynamics of knowing that, like, you can have, like my first book I wrote, second chance at life. God gave me a second chance, gave Jay a second chance, gave you listening a second chance. Get up and just be the baddest motherfucker that's always been inside you. And pardon that expression, I choose my cusses very strategically these days. And it's just get up, put the work in, like, because it's so cool to see, like, the creativity that comes out of us, like, once we finally find our purpose. And then you got to fight for it every day. That's why the War of Purpose Built to Break, the course,
Yeah.
like, my dad and I were just talking about that. And he's like, I lost my purpose during COVID. My dad just turned 74, and to see him, I'm like, dude, you got a whole lifetime still in front of you. 74 isn't even old anymore. You know what I mean?
You got at
And
least 20 more years. Come
yeah.
on.
And so, like, you gotta reinvent yourself, because there's something inside you that the world needs to have, because you're going to keep saving souls. And, that's the dynamic of it. And especially those of us with the icks and the isms, it's our superpower. once you can get past the label, it's our superpower.
Absolutely. And thank you, Ryan, for being on the show. Thank you for coming and sharing your journey and your hope. And my acronym for hope is hold on, the pain will end.
Absolutely.
Because it does. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, a day after Thanksgiving, to come on here and share your story. I really do appreciate that.
No, thank you, Jay. Just truly blessed to be here.
Thank you. And that's your show for today. Keep rocking your recovery. I'll see you guys Monday.